Thomas has kindly offered to be the second webinar of the AI Foundry. So he's going to be talking about ethical AI and how to kind of approach ethics within AI. Like I said in the message on the WhatsApp and within the community group on Mighty Networks, it's a really hot topic in the space right now, because a lot of businesses are now waking up to AI. They've started to use it, and then they're getting all of these questions as well. Okay, is it ethical? How am I using it ethically? Am I doing the right things? All of that kind of stuff. So Thomas is going to take us through all the stuff that he's learned, all the stuff that he knows around it. And yeah, if you have any questions, shout out, and I'll kind of hand over to Thomas now.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Yeah, I wanted to, just before I get started, I want to keep this as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions throughout, comments, thoughts, please just shout them out, and we can have a discussion throughout. I don't just want to talk at you for the next hour. I do have like a dedicated area at the end where we can go into Q&A as well, if you wanted to hold it till then. But yeah, we can do it throughout. So yeah, this is all about AI ethics, governance, and risk management, obviously within the AI space as well. So it's, as I say, as the title says, it's how to build AI that doesn't come back to bite you. Now, what I've noticed is, from talking to a range of different businesses and people in the space, is that there's a lot of people focusing on the actual build and the implementation and what's the newest system, but I've not seen all that many conversations about the ethics, the frameworks in place, the governance, to make sure that these systems actually serve the businesses and its customers, rather than just implementing it for the sake of implementing AI. AI is incredible and it's the way the world's going, but building it without the proper frameworks is definitely going to come back to bite a lot of businesses. And I think that is going to be sort of a lagging effect of this new AI wave. We are going to see a lot of businesses start to get in trouble, as I'll come into. But yeah, so today I'll just be going through how we can stop that from happening. Right. So who am I? I won't bore you with this, but I run an AI voice agency. So we focus on building inbound voice agent systems, sort of a receptionist as a service, for service-based businesses who are heavily reliant on the phone for their customer interactions, inbound leads, etc. But as well as that, I also have a full-time job at a software company, where I'm also doing a level 7 AI data specialist apprenticeship. So that's where I've really learned about the ethics and governance side. So, you're hearing this from someone who not only studies it, but I'm also building this in the real world for real clients as well. So this is something I massively take into consideration. So I'm going to take you back to when I first started my apprenticeship. And this was my fault. my first module when I first joined my apprenticeship was obviously risks, ethics, and governance. And as soon as I got slapped with that, I was like, oh, this is really annoying. Like, I've just joined this apprenticeship. Like a lot of people on this call, I really wanted to just get stuck in with building. I wanted to build all the workflows, automate absolutely everything, just become the AI guy at my company. So yeah, started the apprenticeship. Then I got into this module. It felt dry at first, and there's a lot to it. It's quite a large topic, and I can definitely understand why businesses feel quite overwhelmed by the area. But I always knew it mattered. I knew that they didn't put this in there for no reason. So yeah. So I obviously wrote through the modules, did a lot of learning. Then I got to the end, and that's when I actually had to apply what I'd learned. So I had tasks such as building out our internal AI definition. So this basically just gives us some kind of kind of like a North Star for why we're building AI. You know, like what are our overarching business goals, and are we implementing AI that reflects those? I then had to build an ethics statement, which is kind of like a customer-facing document, which lets customers know, well, customers and just general stakeholders, which lets people know why we're using AI in the first place. So it's not just about, oh, we've just built it and here you go. It's, you know, why are we using this? How is this going to benefit you? What systems have we got in place to make sure that it's safe? So yeah, once I started getting into that, I had a bit of like an aha moment. I started to realize that this isn't just like paperwork for the sake of it. This is actually going to help businesses move faster, because what I'm noticing is businesses feel this massive pressure to just, you know, build AI and become a company that uses AI, or in a lot of businesses as well, implementing AI in their product. But what this exercise actually allowed me to do was kind of take a step back and look at, you know, how can we use AI that's going to benefit us in our unique situation, and not just follow the cookie cutter approach and do what everyone else is doing. So having these systems and frameworks in place actually, in my opinion, helps businesses move faster and actually get to their desired outcome a lot quicker.
I had a question, if you don't mind me jumping in.
Yeah, go for
it. So you mentioned the AI definition and the AI ethics statement. What kind of stuff are you putting in there, and why are they important?
Yeah, sure. So the AI definition is kind of, it's like an overarching, it's like, I don't know, maybe a paragraph. It's not terribly long, and it's more like an internal statement so that we have clarity around the types of systems we want to build, in terms of, you know, you have an idea of like, why are you building it? So are we building this to improve our customer service? Are we doing this to reduce our operational time? Is it a mixture of both? You know, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to, how does this tie in with our overall company goals as well? Whereas the ethics statement it's longer, but this really gets into the detail about providing your stakeholders answers to the questions about like how you're using it, why you're using it, how you're testing it, how it was produced. So the process you go through from idea to deployment, how it prevents things like bias, and also, like, I think it's a bit of a marketing thing as well, because you can then put out there, you know, how is this going to benefit our customers? And I just think there's going to be a real differentiation between the companies that have these kind of like statements out there, because it really shows to their customers, you know, that they are really taking this stuff seriously, and we're not just throwing AI in without thinking about the repercussions.
Cool.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go for it.
Are you actively promote? Is this first and foremost a USP for you when you're pitching? And I mean, are you using it as a kind of a unique angle, like we're thinking about it, we're implementing it, others aren't, or are you kind of just leaving it there as something for clients to discover about you?
So as part of my voice agent company, I wouldn't say yeah, I guess it is part of a USP, because, you know, I'm not seeing a load of language around it in a lot of people's systems that they're selling. So, you know, we include it as part of our marketing, things like that, about, you know, how we are really taking these things into account when I build voice agents. You know, I'm not just building them just so that they do the job and that's it. There's all of these systems and processes that go into place throughout the build, and then the continuous monitoring, to make sure that it upholds those values.
Right.
And then, can I be super cheeky? Do you have any kind of templates or anything you'd be willing to share on the ethics statement?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I have some resources for this webinar that I was going to give out afterwards, but that wasn't included in it. But I can definitely do that.
Awesome.
I have some examples that I can give to
Cheers,
people.
mate. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've kind of done that. So yeah, this is, in my opinion, this is all about leading with strong foundations. So making sure that, you know, the systems you have in place, they're a lot more robust, and we've not just like rushed them out the door to, I don't know, say we're using AI or try and get some kind of benefit out of it. Like there is a real thought through process beforehand. So, you know, what are some of the benefits of this? So you're likely to get fewer mistakes from the output if you've really considered the build and the potential issues you could have with it. Likely to get fewer complaints from customers as well, and internal stakeholders. You know, we don't want to make this harder for our staff. Few to no data issues. Like realistically, we don't want any data leakages, GDPR breaches, things like that. You know, these are all incredibly important. So proper governance beforehand, make sure that you don't have any of those issues. Compliance becomes a lot easier as well. I'm sure you're all aware, but the EU AI Act has recently come out and will be fully rolled out over the next 2 years. And this will have an impact on UK businesses. So, you know, if you do ever have a regulator come and knock on your door, making sure you have the right processes in place really makes those conversations a lot easier. You can really just show how you've really thought this through and provide documentation on that as well. Again, further trust from customers, staff buy-in is definitely going to be a lot better as well. These systems will then scale a lot better. If the foundations are in place, then, you know, you can really then roll them out across, you know, they should then not crumble if you get a lot more demand and things like that with them as well. They're less likely to break. And also there's not as much likelihood of having to rebuild it, which could be really expensive if you're doing it internally or using an agency as well, if these things are built properly to start with.
Another question?
Yeah, go for it.
Are you finding that you are being questioned by clients as you're going through the discovery about the ethics side of things and governance, or are you having to kind of like bring it up and do the educate your client yourself?
I think because of the way I lead, I talk about this stuff quite early on. So it's usually me who's bringing it up. So I'm probably not the best person to ask on that, to be fair, because I wouldn't know if they're actually going to ask, because I've usually already said about it pretty early
Covered
on.
it. Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
but I can imagine people are going to start asking these questions a lot more anyway, because, you know, I think there's this whole notion where people think that AI doesn't apply to things like GDPR or, you know, HIPAA compliance, all of these different regulations. I think they just think AI is like this black box that can't be touched by anything. But as people start to realize that that's not the truth, these questions will definitely be asked. And I think it's really going to test a lot of agencies as well when they do start expecting answers to this.
Yep.
So today's focus, as I said, I mentioned things like AI definition, things like that earlier, but I'm going to keep it quite broad today, which covers ethics, governance, and risk management altogether. So it's really about guardrails. So making sure that you have considered all these guardrails when building systems and also using them as well. So before I get into what the guardrails are, there's a distinction I want to make that really does apply to this. So there's a difference between using AI, things like your foundational models like ChatGPT or Claude, and already, you know, pre-built AI tools as well, things like Fireflies, whatever else you use. A lot of the times the the AI systems you're using and the foundational models, they should have gone through a lot more of a rigorous testing process. They're more likely to be compliant as well, because obviously they're companies running these systems and these products. So these companies should have already absorbed most of the risk. Now, people should always still make sure that they're doing their due diligence in terms of what they're putting into these systems, based on, you know, your company's risk appetite and the types of data you're using. But there is a differentiation when it comes to using AI tools and actually building AI. Excuse me. So when we're building AI systems, these are usually like bespoke systems. You know, they're bespoke to your business, your data points, your inputs, the types of models you're using, what you're then doing with that data. So they're basically standalone systems. You know, like they're kind of like their own versions of these little company systems each time you build one. And the problem with this is, you know, it's great that there's low and no code tools out there now, and this has really lowered the barrier to entry for a lot of people wanting to build. But the problem is then that we're building these things but not actually taking consideration for, okay, what data are we using here? What are we making publicly available by passing this to an LLM? You know, what is in my voice agent example, it connects to people's CRM, things like that. What guardrails are in place to make sure that someone couldn't just come in and speak to this agent and pull a load of data out their CRM? These things all have to be considered when you're building your own bespoke agents. And it's also important to make sure that these are being considered when you're partnering with agencies as well. You know, these are the types of questions you want to ask any agency that's building something for you as well. So using AI isn't the problem, but building without guardrails is. So what are the real risks here? You know, there's, as you probably would have all seen from the news and things like that, there's a variety of different risks and downfalls of AI as well. You know, AI is inherently biased, because most AI systems are trained on basically all the world's data, and all the media that's in the world as well. And as humans, one of our flaws is we are biased to a certain extent. The problem is with this, you know, if you're using this to, I don't know, if you were using it in a hiring system or something like that, and it had access to someone's ethnicity, their gender, their age, this can then make, you know, discriminatory decisions. We can also have things like data leakage. You know, if the workflow isn't properly considered, then, you know, data could be pulled out by a malicious actor, things like this as well. It could just be, as I said earlier, just, you know, spat out by the LLM itself if you're not considering where you're actually connecting the data to. AI as well, you know, inherently it hallucinates. Now these are getting better as models get better, but they do hallucinate still, and they'll be confidently incorrect, which is, you know, which is worrying as well. And these are things we need to have guardrails in place for. You know, there was a recent case with Deloitte where they had to refund part of a 440k government report to the Australian government, because someone used AI to build that report, and it fabricated a load of evidence, a load of stats, and yeah, so they had to pay that back. And that could have all been prevented if there was proper human oversight in place as well. You know, someone had clearly just thrown this into a GPT and not actually gone over the facts, not looked at the citations, things like this. So, and this is happening with big companies as well. Like, this isn't just small companies. So it's, you know, which is even more worrying, because you would think they're the ones that should have more processes in place. But what I'm finding is, I think everyone's kind of starting from zero with AI. and that's definitely been the case with some of these bigger companies. Yeah, there can be massive reputational damage as well. You know, if your AI system doesn't behave as it should, if it gives poor outputs, they're not on brand, they're not on tone, then that can really conflict and damage your reputation. And people won't just put it down to, oh, it's just AI. They will blame the company, and they will then tie that feeling to that company because they'll think that they've not, you know, not put these systems in place correctly. And it just makes the company look sloppy as well.
Yeah, I might chime in, Thomas, just to kind of back that up as well. So,
Yeah.
what I've just finished a training program with the bank, so they're super on top of like compliance and everything like that, being in a regulatory kind of environment. And one thing I was saying to them was the fact that people forget that AI is trained on mass amounts of data from all over the internet, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's from Reddit, whether it's from social media, whether it's from like a white paper or a trusted source. So when you're kind of building your agents or building your solutions, it's really kind of important to think about this and to think about all of that data that it's been trained on and all the data that it has access to. It's quite a worrying, quite a big issue, and that's why some of these bigger companies are not thinking of that, and they're just thinking that AI is going to be right 100% of the time, but that's not really the case. And that's what we saw with, like you said, about Deloitte. I'm pretty sure, like in the early days, there was a lawyer who tried to use AI to help him with a case.
Yeah.
And obviously, because it tries to please people so much, it tries to give you like the output that you want. It gave him a bunch of I can't remember what they're called now, like a bunch of laws and cases that didn't actually, they weren't even real. And he took that to court, and yeah, he got stung. So I don't know if he's still trading now or anything, but yeah, just something to be mindful of. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of chirp in and kind of back up exactly what you said, because some of these businesses, like the bank I was working with, are really interested in that kind of compliance, making sure that, you know, the right data is coming through from the mass amount of data it's all trained on.
Yeah, exactly. I think people do think like AI is this magic pill, that it's just not, you know, it's not flawed in any way at all, that it's, you know, it can do everything. But AI is meant to, well, my opinion of AI, it's meant to augment humans, meaning it's meant to assist us. It's not meant to be a full replacement just yet. I mean, for some roles it will get there, but I think, you know, it's really meant to be a tool rather than you shouldn't delegate everything to it. You know, use your own intuition. And I think this is why human oversight is still incredibly important. So yeah, so why is Guardrails in place within a company, you know, useful as well? So there's a lot of staff these days, they'll be using AI, you know, whether you like it or not, your members of staff will be using it. So having guardrails in place and actual policies around it should limit what they're actually doing with it, to make sure that there aren't any of those issues. I'm also noticing a lot of people are just because their competitors doing something, they're then jumping on it and doing the exact same thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right system for their business, their workflows, and also their current position in the market. And as I said earlier, there is regulation coming in. You know, the EU AI Act. Regulators are going to start cracking down on these things, and they're not going to be cheap when people are billed for non-compliance. And customers expect honesty as well. You know, I think you've got to think about the type of brand you want to build. If you want to build a brand where you're just using these systems and customers are like, well, how did you get to that? And, you know, am I actually speaking to an AI voice agent, or is this an actual person? You know, all of these transparency parts that are really important as well. So actually get onto, so these are just some overarching guardrails that I've pulled from all my learning over the last few months. So every AI system you develop in your company really needs a clear use case. You know, why are you actually going to develop this system, to give it access to your data? You know, what is the outcome and the value that we're expecting to get from that? Because if you don't have a clear why, then it's definitely easy to, you know, have scope creep and not see the potential risks that are coming with that as well. Data checks, companies need to really think of all the risks that are associated with the data they're going to be providing these systems, making sure that they're representative. We don't want to make the bias any worse, so making sure they're given a full data set if they are given any, but then also making sure that can't then be leaked. I've just touched on bias there as well. Human oversight, I think this is incredibly important for a lot of systems. An example for what we do with the AI voice agent, there's transcriptions that are built off the back of that, and they're logged wherever the customer would prefer. This then allows for that, they can improve it, but they can also make sure that it's giving the outputs that they want. But there's also fail safes in terms of, if the AI can't answer the question, or they notice the person's frustrated, or they really need to talk to a human representative, the system is able to pick up on that, and it's able to then transfer to an actual human agent. It's not a closed loop. There should still be the ability for a human to step in if it's going wrong, and it's not actually giving the value that it's built to do. Testing as well. I think people really need to take testing seriously. They need to throw everything they can in the kitchen sink at these systems, to make sure that they're actually given the outputs that we expect, and also to make sure that it's not going off on tangents, and it can't necessarily be derailed by the user as well. Examples of this might be if a person wanted to, I don't know, ask your system for, say you had a customer facing chatbot or something like that, for financial advice or for a discount that you don't offer, making sure that it doesn't do that, that it knows how to then bring the conversation back to where it should be, is massive. And the final one here is monitoring. So I don't think these systems should be a set and forget system, because AI is evolving all the time. There's better models, so I think we should be upgrading them as and when it's appropriate to do so. But also, these systems are black boxes. We don't entirely know how they work, like on the actual inside. So we want to make sure that we are getting those consistent results even after launch. Once they've been in there, in the system, in the business for however long, we should be revisiting it on a regular basis. And I also think for agencies as well, it's definitely worth them still staying involved in the systems they developed, if the customer doesn't have their own capabilities of doing so. So next, I just wanted to go into a quick activity. So it's just a spot the risk task. So your company builds a custom AI assistant that replies to customer emails. It can read customer profiles, check order history, access support tickets, recommend solutions, send replies automatically if the confidence is high enough. A junior member of staff built the workflow using a no-code tool in one afternoon. Can anyone identify any risks, any pitfalls to this process, where they haven't really upheld these values?
Maybe the junior person creating it in an afternoon at the end, because
Yeah.
you're creating it and shipping it out. Then where's the testing? Where's the is there a human in the loop? I didn't quite hear if there's a human in the loop or anything.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there, literally doesn't seem like there's much thought behind it. Doesn't seem like it's linked to company goals, governance structures, things like this. It's just, oh, I want to build this workflow, and they've done it over an afternoon.
It's good for an MVP internally, right? But not customer facing.
Yeah, exactly. Any others? So yeah, I would just say another one is testing. You know, so have they done bias testing? If they've done it in an afternoon, I very much doubt they have. Have they made sure that it's going to treat all customers that use it fairly? Making sure it doesn't act without proper oversight as well. You know, have these things been put in place to make sure that it only acts within its realm? Could mishandle complaints, or give vulnerable customers incorrect information, or potentially damaging information. And then, yeah, damaging brand, breaking compliance. There's lots of different areas here where it looks like they may have missed out.
Thomas, a quick question. What are your thoughts, and have you used AI to keep AI honest? I have been and have had varying results, but I just wondered, you know, we've got these tools, we've got multiple LLM models, and they all have their own flavors. Have you found, when you talk about, you know, testing and you know, throwing things at it, have you been using, you build a model and then you kind of go, or you build a system, then you go, right, run this through another LLM to see what that has to say about it?
So I have done, in terms of prompting and things like that, more to kind of bulletproof the prompt, just kind of get some extra feedback on that. But then a lot of it I do myself, if I'm honest with you. Like, I'll go through the entire, like I have a process I actually go through for testing the voice agent. So I'll sit on the phone with it for 40 minutes or so, just asking it as many different questions in as many different ways as possible, and just seeing its responses, and then tweaking the prompt from there. And yeah, I found that to be effective. So yeah, I have a bit in terms of the prompt. Also, in terms of refining knowledge bases, I've definitely done that as well, just to make sure that the latency is as quick as possible, and also that it just provides the information that the system actually needs, rather than just extra stuff for no reason. So yeah, we've gone through this, but obviously the slides will be available afterwards if anyone wanted to grab all this. So they just prevent, you know, inaccurate data and predictions, outputs that you wouldn't want to be given to customers, bias, discrimination. You know, we don't want to introduce these into our business and our customers' interactions. They make sure that any system failures and vulnerabilities are noticed during the development, and even sometimes before the development as well. By doing like stakeholder risk assessments, things like that, you can make sure that you have an idea of where the systems could go wrong before you even build them. And then there's model drift, unexpected behavior. As I said, that's through, you know, rigorous testing. So yeah, as I said earlier on in this presentation, I actually think having guardrails in place makes businesses move faster. They work on the right things. They're not just building for the sake of it. You know, they're not just throwing AI at every single problem, because AI is not great at solving every single problem. You know, there are some traditional ways of doing it that are still better. So we don't necessarily need to be using AI for all of it. And also, you know, when you don't have these things in place, you're likely to have to rebuild the system anyway, or you know, constantly review it, and maybe even after a while you may have to completely decommission it if it's not built to stand the test of time in terms of your company's long-term goals. Yeah, these are just some other ways AI goes wrong. A main point I wanted to make here was I think it's really important that businesses think about their in-house capability as well when they're thinking about implementing AI. You know, if you're like a software company that has software engineers or AI data scientists, things like this, then, you know, they have the capability to build these systems internally themselves, and they're likely to be safer because, you know, a lot of us, like software testing principles, ensure that the outcomes of these systems and things like that are, you know, are properly guardrailed and built correctly. Whereas if you've got, I don't know, a small plumbing firm looking to implement AI and they think, oh, I'll just watch a YouTube video and, you know, I can just tweak this to my own company and that's fine. And then there's little to no thought about, you know, what are the implications of this system? What about the data that you're giving it access to, things like that? I think that's where it opens up massive risk. So I actually implore those businesses, I think they should be working with agencies. I think they should be working with professionals who've done this before, who are taking this stuff seriously, and who actually know how to implement these systems without you know, the massive headache that comes with non-compliance and potential, you know, data security issues. Yeah, so there will be some free resources. I've made like a couple of Notion documents, just some like checklists that everyone can access after this. I'm sure it'll be included in the Foundry along with this recording. Any questions at all? I'm happy to answer now.
What would you say? You're talking about different processes that you can put in place in terms of ethics in AI. What would you say is like the most important one that we should maybe be looking at doing first? Because obviously there's probably multiple. So what would be the first one we should kind of look at and implement?
Yeah. Well, I think it's purpose. I mean, I think getting really clear on the purpose of why you're actually building these systems is important. I think people are just jumping into this because it's the buzzword. So I think getting really clear on, you know, is this the best solution to actually solve this problem? But you know, making sure that it does that exactly. But also, I think transparency as well. You know, transparency is massive in terms of an ethical principles with your customers, because I think they deserve to know you're using AI. I don't think it should come as a surprise to people, especially if it could be handling your data, things like this. People should be aware. So, yeah, I definitely say purpose and transparency, but they're all equally important. But it's also making sure you have, you know, you have this consideration for ethics and governance throughout the entire build and like the ideation process, all the way through the development to the continuous monitoring. These things should be thought about the entire way through. It's not just, oh, we just do it at the start and then that's it. So making sure it's a, you know, a life cycle long approach for the individual system is important.
Yeah, I think transparency is a big thing. So I think the kind of stigma on people using AI is starting to go. So people used to see it as like a negative, whereas I think now it's been around for a little while that people are starting to see it as a benefit. And I'll go back to the bank that I was just working with. They were really, really keen on transparency and explainability as well, because of regulators and auditors that are going to come knocking at their door. So if they are implementing AI, they need to be able to, well, tell customers that they are, and then also explain how AI is being used as well and how it's coming to decisions on different kind of cases for like mortgage applications or whatever. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, exactly. That explainability piece, you know, it's massive as well, because if something does go wrong, you really want to be able to look into the system and see where it went wrong and why it went wrong. So yeah, I think that's also, again, it's hard to pick one. They are all equally important.
Yeah, you don't want to be that. Well, is that Spider-Man picture, isn't it, where they're all pointing at each other? Like, you don't want that situation, do you?
Exactly that.
Hey, Thomas, so it's Marty. I'm preparing right now all my templates when sending the proposal to the clients, and there is one specific where I want to be sure and cover. Like, for example, when, you know, we deploy everything, the automations, etc., and they don't want like a regular maintenance, but if there is an issue, they will come back to us. So I want to cover like external. I don't know if you remember when Cloudflare recently caused significant disruptions to a lot of services and LLMs. So obviously, if there is something like this, the services are going to be broken and they're going to have issues, minor or bigger, right? So I want to do some kind of narrative around like, we're not responsible if suddenly your systems or automations don't work, just, you know, tell us as soon as possible, we will try to fix it. But there will always be an aspect of is out of our control. Have you included that in your comms or your kind of like contracts or proposal with your clients?
It's not something I've thought a massive amount about, but it's definitely something I will think about now. But I think what's important with that as well is making sure that there is the you know, like the fallbacks in place. So making sure that your system isn't the be all and end all, that there is a process, whereas if your system went down, that business isn't all of a sudden going to, you know, not be able to trade because of it. I think we've all, you know, as you said about the Cloudflare situation, we've all started to realize how dependent we are on these, you know, top, I don't know how many companies for our entire businesses to run. So I think, you know, the only thing you can really do is just make sure that they are aware that they have a fail-safe in place. But definitely, if you put that in your contract, I think that makes sense as well. That, you know, you're not reliable for that because you are reliant on other software.
Perfect. Thank you, Thomas.
No problem. So there's no other questions. What I was going to say is, yeah, connect with me. I mainly post on Instagram currently. Just started YouTube as well. I am on LinkedIn as well, but don't necessarily post just yet. So yeah, if you wanted to connect with me on these platforms, it'd be great to have a conversation with you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Thomas. Really appreciate that. So that was a really great session on ethics. And as I said before, and as Thomas actually said as well, it's not the most glamorous topic, and people didn't necessarily care about it at the start. But now that businesses are really starting to understand AI and what it does, what it's trained on, and, you know, they're wanting to put it in their businesses, it's becoming like quite a hot topic. And it's something that my customers have been asking me about. And I even had, I think, about 15-20 minutes of a presentation I did a couple of days ago with a client, purely on the ethics and the bias and all that kind of stuff around AI. So really useful. Thank you very much, Thomas.